Header up.
Rob and Chris, they're on the air. Yankees, Mets, they're everywhere. From the Bronx to Queens, the diamond gleams. MLB talk, the ultimate team. MLB is the place to be. Rob and Chris with the pitch you'll see. Swinging stacks and stories fly. Baseball talk that's amplified.
And welcome to a new episode of NYMLB Talk with your hosts Rob and Chris as we cover the Mets, Yankees, and all of Major League Baseball. And today we got a very special guest, and it's actually perfect timing because we got a big trade that we have to talk about a little bit. So Rob, why don't you introduce our special guest?
Listen, I'm really excited to have Erik Sherman. He is a great baseball historian, a New York Times bestseller author, 9 books that he either co-authored or wrote about baseball. I can't wait to get into this with him. I've been looking forward to this for a while. Erik, thanks for coming on the show. We appreciate it.
Hey, it's great to be with you guys. Thanks for having me on.
All right, so Chris, why don't you start it off with the trade and let's start talking about this.
Yeah, let's get into it. I mean, Brendan Nimmo for Simeon from the Rangers. I mean, yeah, it was definitely an upgrade defensively, but it definitely caught me off guard here. What do you guys thought? Erik, let's start with you.
Yeah.
I was really surprised by the deal. The Mets just had given Nimmo a sizable contract not even two years ago. It caught me off guard, but it's a sign that they're really going to shake things up. And I think the fact that they pick up a second baseman like Simeon, it probably spells the end for McNeil. I think he's probably the next to go. But it opens up all kinds of possibilities for the outfield. Do they make a big splash, getting rid of the contract of Nimmo? Do they go out and get a Tatis now? The real wild card in all this is we're probably going to have a work stoppage in 2027. So where does that put things? I mean, that's why I think the offseason's been so quiet. I mean, nothing has gone on. Like usually after the World Series, you get a burst of activity heading into the winter meetings. And I really think that teams are going to think twice about any major deals or any major signings. There's so many free agents this year, but everyone's kind of taking their time because of what I think almost certainly is going to be a work stoppage in 2027, which is just god awful on the heels of probably the greatest World Series of all time.
We've been talking about that for the past couple of months, actually almost all year, about the work stoppage. Yeah, there's going to be a work stoppage. The problem is Major League Baseball always has this thing where they screw things up. Baseball, like you said, World Series was great. Most watched postseason since 2017. Everyone was into it. Everything's going great. And what's going to happen after this season? Probably going to be a work stoppage, and we're going to send everything back to where it was. So, I'm worried about that work stoppage. Also, we've been discussing it, and they really have to figure this out because they can't afford to do what they've done in the past, and that's destroy the game.
Well, there's no way that the players are going to agree to a cap. And that's why I think this has a chance to be really significant. Now, Major League Baseball, they just signed this big TV deal with 3 networks, and nobody wins. The problem is Rob Manfred is not the guy you want as commissioner when something like this is about to occur. I mean, everyone remembers the god-awful body language that he had during the last stoppage during spring training. I think it was a couple of years ago, and he just it's the game needs someone that understands and loves the game more than Rob Manfred. And I know those are strong words, but I'm very concerned that he's going to hold strong on the owner's behalf, and the players are never going to agree to a cap. And I'm extremely concerned that this could be a very lengthy, painful work stoppage.
Yeah, I agree. Chris, you agree too, right?
Kind of, yeah. I don't know. I think there's a little bit of wiggle room. At least I forgot which writer. It might have been Sherman that brought it up. That's saying that there might be a little more wiggle room now with the cap if the players got a little bit more of the piece of the pie. And you got to remember, as long as these guys are getting paid, and the top guys are going to get paid regardless, right? I don't think a cap is going to stop that. And I think if anything, I think the cap, I know not many people will agree, but I think it'll get more spending in, because you're not only going to add a cap, but you're also going to add that floor. So you're going to force teams like the Rays, like Pittsburgh, and whoever else to spend more. When you look at the cap, when you look at the salaries, I think more than half the league is under like $150 million for their total salary, which is a joke, right? When you consider what the Yankees, the Mets, and the Dodgers are spending, and the Phillies, and throw in the Blue Jays now, right? So I think if they put the floor in, and if the cap is not low, like it has to be, probably 250 or I don't know, whatever number they come up with, as long as there's a floor that's pretty high, I think that's going to help, more salaries, at least when you look at it in that sense. But I know the players are going to look at it as, a cap is going to prevent them from spending all this money. But I don't know. We'll see. It's going to be interesting. But I really hope they don't screw this up, man, because they are going in the right direction.
But I mean, just going back to how we got on this topic, about with the Nimmo trade, I just don't think that throughout baseball you're going to see that big splash, because teams are just going to be so wary of 2027. So, well, you seem like an optimist. So
I try my best. I have to be an optimist. I love this game so much. I try to be an optimist.
I know.
Yeah, me too. Let me give my opinion on the Nimmo trade really quick. I just think it's the beginning of stuff for the Mets. Like Erik said, it opens up the outfield. It takes away a little bit of money because he was owed more money. So that's one thing. And McNeil, see, this is where it gets scary, because McNeil, today, I listened to the press conference today, and Stern said, well, McNeil, he has a place because of his versatility and this and that. But guess what? I think, that's like the kiss of death, which, it's probably time for McNeil to move on. I think, they haven't been winning with these guys when they should have been, and they definitely have to do something. So there's going to be moves, and I think the Mets are going to have a busy off season. What do you think, Erik?
I think, relatively speaking, yes, they're going to have a very busy off season. I don't think they're going to make a splash by getting, a Soto type player, but comparatively speaking, I think the Mets are going to have an active offseason. That the Nimmo trade is just the tip of the iceberg. And you make a great point. I mean, the Mets certainly have talent, but they just can't seem to blend. Like, they can't seem to put it together. I don't know if analytics is to blame too much, or if it's coaching, management, or the players themselves. It's probably a little bit of everything, but they've got to do something, because Steve Cohen, he has too much invested in this ball club for them to not even make the playoffs. And I mean, how many times do we have to see the Marlins knock them out of contention the last weekend of the season? It's so I think, comparatively speaking, it's going to be a very active offseason for the Mets. But they've got to go out and get some pitching, probably some middle relief help. Um, and now they're going to need an outfielder.
Yeah.
And we'll
Two.
see. I mean, like you're right, exactly. I mean, there's talk about. I read yesterday that they expect to play Brett Beatty quite a bit at third. I'm not really in love with that idea, but I think that they're looking to cut costs. As
Yeah.
crazy as that sounds.
Yeah, you're probably right. All right, I want to start getting into your books right now. We have plenty of time to talk about off-season stuff. The first book I want to start with, and I'll tell you why after this, is the book you wrote with Shamsky. That was a New York Times bestseller, right?
Yes, it was. Yeah.
I read the book. I loved the book. It's called After the Miracle, The Lasting Brotherhood of the 69 Mets. And the part I loved, and you probably could guess, was when everyone went to visit Seaver at the vineyard. He had Lyme disease at that point. And was his dementia starting at that point?
Yes,
Okay.
absolutely.
And his
Yeah, and
dementia, yeah.
yeah, there's one scene. So I was there.
Yeah.
It was Jerry Kuzman, Art Shamsky, Buddy Harrelson, Tom Seaver, and Ron Swoboda. And yeah, Tom was great. His wife Nancy, not surprisingly, was just so charming and sweet. And they invited us into their home, which their home overlooked Tom's vineyard.
Yeah.
I think he had 5 acres of property where he grew his own grapes and made his own wine, award-winning wine. And so we were there for a few hours. Then we went out to lunch, and I had been with the group and then talked to Tom for about 35 minutes at the base of his vineyard about Jackie Robinson, about Gil Hodges, just the two of us. And Tom got really emotional, and almost broke down in tears. And then the bunch of us, we took a couple of cars, went out to lunch at this restaurant, and Tom turned to me and he asked, "Have you ever been to my vineyard?" And that to me was one of the most poignant, touching aspects of the book because like we all, anyone that grew up watching Tom Seaver like we did,
Yeah.
he was a superhero. I mean, he was larger than life, and to see the horrible effects that that the Alzheimer's like that has on individuals. Well, in his case, Louis dementia.
Yeah.
It's just horrific. But there were so many touching. Like I'll just. I know you have other questions, but I want to get this in.
Yeah.
After lunch, we're all in the parking lot, and nobody wanted to leave. They hung out together for almost an hour in the parking lot because they knew that this was the last time they were all going to get together. I mean, you had Kuzman flew in from Wisconsin, Swoboda from New Orleans, Art and we flew out with Buddy, who was in the beginnings of his Alzheimer's, and of course there was Tom, and they knew that was the last time that this brotherhood, that went through the 69 Miracle Mets championship season together, be the last time that they were all going to be together, and they didn't want it to end. And so that to me is probably the most touching aspect of the book.
That's why I brought it up, because that was so touching for me to read it. Like you said, it chokes you up. And you were there, you experienced it, you saw firsthand how close these guys were, and I don't like to ever bring it up as like going to war, because of course it's two different things.
But
I do not like,
but I get it. but I
Yeah.
get it. They really were. I mean, 69. I mean, they were perennial losers,
Yeah.
and then to accomplish what they did, to win 100 games, to be 10 games out with whatever it was, like 35 to go, and win the division, and then sweep the Braves, the Hank Aaron Atlanta Braves, and then I mean the Baltimore Orioles. My goodness, I mean that was the closest thing to a dynasty since the great Yankee teams. The Orioles, that great Orioles team really, they won in 66, the World
Okay.
Series. They beat the Dodgers. They lost to the Mets in 69, uh, beat the Reds in 70, and then lost to the Pirates in 71, a 7-game series.
Yep.
That I mean, that was a team that averaged, I think, 109 wins from 68 through 70. So the Mets were heavy underdogs heading into that series. So um, it was so appropriate that the 69 Mets occurred the same year as the moon landing.
Yeah.
It was a year of miracles.
It sure was. And listen, it was a year, that time span in New York sports history was just amazing. The Jets win the Super
Yeah.
Bowl, the Knicks win the championship, and here I am thinking this is going to be great. All my teams have won, and then we know what happens. And Chris is laughing because he's the Yankee part of the show, but
Yeah.
yeah, it was just, that was just a miracle year and a miracle time period. And really, any Mets fan, any baseball fan, I really recommend this book. It's so touching, and I couldn't put it. It's one of those books that I couldn't put it down. I read it. I actually read it when I was on a cruise ship, and I could not put it down.
Oh, that's
So
nice. Thank
it
you.
it was great. I
Eric,
loved it.
what was the time frame from that meeting till when he passed?
Um, it would have been well, we went out there in 2017. Um, so I suppose it was
When did he pass?
about 2.5 years, 3 years. Yeah,
About 3, right?
close to
2020.
3. Yeah, yeah. About from the time the book was released to the time that Tom passed, it was like between 2.5 and 3 years.
Yeah,
Yeah, he died
it's
in 2020, August of
yes.
Yep.
2020.
Yep.
Yeah, COVID.
Hmm.
You're right, August of
Okay.
2020. I can't believe how fast time goes. But now this is a good segue because I want to get into as many books as I can. In 1969, Davy Johnson made the last out of that World Series, and then in 1986, of course, he managed the New York Mets. And the 80s, I love the 69 Mets. I was a little young. I remember bits and pieces, but the 86 Mets, love that team. My favorite Met team of all time. And Davey managed the team. And it's so funny, too, because Seaver was in the dugout for the Red Sox. He was injured, of course, so he did not get to play. And Buddy Harrelson was a coach for the Mets. So they were in the stadium for both World Series, of course. But you wrote a book, and Davey just passed away a couple of months ago. And Davy Johnson, real quick, was the first major league player or manager that I interviewed. I was a dopey kid at a college radio station, and Jay Horowitz let me come in. I always tell this story and interview some of the 85 Mets. So,
Wow.
Davey spoke to me for about, I guess, 10 minutes. And it was really, really nice of him. But why don't you tell us about Davy Johnson's book? It's an autobiography, right, that you co-authored with him?
Yeah, yeah. And Davey and I became really close after. Well, that's what happens when you when you're the co-author of an autobiography. You just become the subject's best friend, their therapist, their priest, whatever, like everything. I mean, you're like they're telling you their deepest, darkest thoughts. And I actually gave one of the 2 eulogies at his service. I went before Darryl Strawberry, and that was such an honor for Davey's wife Susan to invite me down and to Florida. And but yeah, the autobiography was released in 2018, and Davey wrote the foreword to Kings of Queens,
Yeah.
the book I wrote with the '86 Mets,
Yeah.
and he loved that book so much that he said, you know what, I've been thinking about doing an autobiography for years. You're just the guy to do it. And it was the longest book I've ever written. It's like about 130,000 words, which is big for a baseball bio, because he had such an incredible Forrest Gump like baseball life. And I mean that in the best way possible. What I mean is, if you've seen the movie Forrest Gump,
Yep.
Gump was always, he always had a front row seat to some historical event. Well, that was Davey. I mean, he got the last hit ever off of Sandy Koufax in the '66 World Series.
Hmm.
Um, he um, he was on the on deck circle, not the on deck circle, but he was on double deck for both the night that Hank Aaron surpassed Babe Ruth's all-time home run record, and also on double deck the night that Sadahara O surpassed Babe
Oh
Ruth.
yeah, in
Wow.
Japan.
Yeah, he had the most home runs to this day of any second baseman in a single season. He had 43 in 1973, and it was his only year where he had a significant number of home runs. I think the his second biggest season with home runs, he had like 17. So there was that. It just you mentioned earlier he made the last out of the '69 series, and then fast forward 15 years later, and he's on the other in the Mets dugout as their manager. It just goes on and on and on. He was always he brought sabermetrics to baseball well before the geeks took it over. I mean, it was just one thing after the next. So he had a great baseball life, and so the book took some time. But I'll give you a little bit of inside information on the book and my
Okay.
interactions with Davey. Um, we worked on the book, and he really enjoyed the process a lot through 1986. Now, he still had a lot of his baseball career left to go after '86. He
Yeah.
still had a few more years left with the Mets, and then he went on. I think Cincinnati was next, and then Baltimore, and then Los Angeles, and then Washington. And, so there was still a lot of baseball left, but after '86, he didn't enjoy the process as much because um, he was very disappointed in, I think, the Mets front office for taking um, some of his input away. After '86, he never wanted Ray Knight and Kevin Mitchell to leave the Mets.
Yeah.
Like he wanted them to re-sign Knight, and he never wanted to see Kevin Mitchell go. Those two guys were the enforcers of that '86 team, the team that was involved in at least 4 bench clearing
Yep.
brawls. And, there was an intimidation, a swagger, a hubris to that '86 team. And it was missing after that. Even though you could make an argument that the '88 team was every bit as good, if not
Right.
better, than '86. Especially they had David Cohn
Yeah.
on that team, and Greg Jeffries, and but there was something missing, and he never wanted those guys to go. And then when they trade McDowell and Dykstra, and these were all deals that he never wanted to see happen. And it wasn't just Cashin anymore. They had a couple of assistant GMs, and he really felt like he kind of lost control. And Davey always saw himself as the smartest guy in any baseball room, and he's probably right. But it was that part of him, and he admitted it, that really would tick off owners and general managers, because they wanted to take some of the credit.
What do you think was the move that pushed him off and said, "All right, I'm done"?
Well,
That
he was
final
well,
move.
well, he was fired by the Mets.
Yes.
Right.
He was fired in late May of 1990, and one of one of the regrets he took to his grave was he never got to say goodbye to the team. The Mets were on the road, and Cashin said to him, "Look, you know, it would really be better if you go out the side door of the hotel." At least that's what he told me, and never got to say goodbye to his guys. And but no, he didn't want to go. But
Yeah.
he tells a somewhat humorous story. Um, the Mets had their welcome home lunch in 1990. Like they do every year in April, and it's really for season ticket holders, I suppose, and other VIPs. And Buddy Harrelson was sitting with Frank Cashin, wearing a bow tie, which Frank was
Yeah.
famous for. And Davey said, "I knew at that moment I was in trouble."
Yeah, because Buddy took over. Now, one of my favorite Davy Johnson stories is when in '86, we all know what happened on that plane where they destroyed the plane, and then Frank Cashin calls Davy into his office and hands him the bill, saying that he wants the players to pay for the damage. And Davy, and this is why Davy was such a great manager. Davy gets up in the clubhouse and he calls everybody around and he tells them what Cashin said, that he wants them to pay the bill. And then he stands up and he rips the bill
Yeah.
and he throws it. Like, that's a great Davy Johnson story. I love that story.
It's one of the best. They tore up the plane, and then Davey, he blamed the wives.
Yeah.
He said, they weren't usually on our flights. It was usually against team policy, but we let them on, and really it was their fault. And he stood by that, and you're right. Before game one of the World Series, he had the invoice from the airline, and that the team had given, and he said, the players are going to have to foot this bill, and he ripped it up in front of the team, and he said, after we win the World Series, we're going to make this team plenty of money. They can pay for it.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I think Davey mentioned to me that he may have paid for some of it out of his own pocket, which was a common thing. I mean, he was a really, what people don't know unless you've read the book is that Davey made more money outside of baseball than he ever made in baseball. He was a sophisticated real estate investor, and he made millions and millions of dollars in real estate. And even by '86, he was pretty comfortable. So anyway.
Yeah, that we could now segue into the other book that I read and that I love, King of Queens, which was published in 2016. And why don't you tell us about that book, about the '86 Mets? That's another book that I love.
Well, yeah. So I took I interviewed in their own walk of life. So I did a lot of flying that year, wherever the key and most intriguing '86 Mets lived or worked. I flew out there to see them, and I covered not just their playing career, but also their current environment, what they were up to now. Very much like something that Roger Kahn would write in Boys of Summer, when he wrote about the Brooklyn Dodgers, very much in that vein. So it turned out to be a highly emotional book, especially when you talk to guys. When I talk to guys like Strawberry and Gooden,
Yeah.
who had their earmarked for the Hall of Fame, and through their issues with drug use, um, they they ended any chance that they had of
Yeah.
making the Hall of Fame. Two of the most talented players of all time. Darryl Strawberry was a modern day Ted Williams, and Dwight Gooden was, I mean, he could have turned out to be the greatest of all time. I mean, in the vein of Bob Gibson or
Yeah.
Walter Johnson or somebody like that, and so very highly emotional interviews. Ed Hearn,
Yeah.
he's lived the life of Job, like biblical problems with his health since almost since the time he got traded uh, for David Cohn. It's just the stories that they had. Then he had the craziness of the interview I did with Lenny Dykstra, who just hijacked the interview, which was great because his his behavior, like how he handled those 3 or 4 hours, was pure theater. I mean, like that's what you hope for when you're writing a book like this.
Yeah.
Um, oh my God, Doug Sisk. Sometimes the greatest stories that you get are from not the stars.
Yeah.
And everything that Doug Sisk went through, he was the only one of the '86 Mets that was probably unpopular. And if you look at his statistics, they were good. My God, I mean, if he pitched today, he'd always find a job somewhere. As
Yeah.
a middle reliever or a closer, he was good. But his problem was in '84 when the Mets were chasing the Cubs. Um, he had a few rough games, and it was because he was injured, but he didn't make
Yeah.
that public.
Yeah.
And it's such a shame. That's what fans remembered him for, how the Mets were chasing the Cubs in '84, and on a game of the week, a Saturday game in mid-September, I think it was, or early September, he got lit up pretty good, and the fans never let him forget it. So you have those types of stories.
Yeah, I just wanted to mention Ed Hearn, because I was in contact with him when he was looking for the second kidney.
Mm.
Recently I was in touch with him. I put it out there. You're right. What a life of Job. Really, the poor man has suffered so much. And I felt so bad for him. So I know what you're talking about. Dykstra. So tell us more about the interview with Dykstra.
Yeah. So, you read the book. I mean, there's plenty of zaniness in there, and he was just, so transparent. But I will give you a scoop. So,
Okay.
so we meet at this boutique hotel in LA. I mean, right by UCLA, great neighborhood in the Westwood part of LA. And and he starts telling me how, yeah, I'm a male prostitute and all this stuff. And I'm like, I mean, come on, and he's telling me some other things. And I'm like, should I put this in the book? I mean, it'll certainly help book sales. It'll probably go straight to the New York Times bestseller list like right away. And I mean, but I'm thinking myself, no, this poor guy. and he was so nice, to grant me the interview and to give me all that time. And, he's probably joking around. And if I write this, it could be libel or whatever. And so all these things are going through my head. And I'm like, but he did say it. And then I don't write that. Um, so then he goes on the Howard Stern show uh, a few months later, and he tells Howard exactly what he told me. And I'm like, all right, I probably should have put it in the book. I mean, he never said it was off the record or anything. And not that I believe it, I
Yeah.
mean, who knows? But Lenny can be a charming guy, and we really had a great conversation. We've seen each other since, and he's trying to put things back together, and it's tough. I mean, like, this is a guy that was up something like $70 million, and he lost it all. He more than 70. I think he lost 100 million. With his investments and his business ventures, and it's just really sad. I mean, that's a tragic story because this was a kid that just grew up loving baseball. He, I'll tell you one other thing about Lenny that I found surprising. I brought up Pete Rose, and they both played the game with reckless abandon,
Yeah.
and both of them made a mess of their lives. And I said, Lenny, do you ever? They both played for the Phillies, all this stuff. Lenny, do you ever see the similarities between you and Pete? And he goes, what are you talking about? He had no idea. And
Yeah.
so anyway, but that was I mean, I've interviewed hundreds of ball players. That was by far the craziest interview.
Yeah.
He's all over the place. He was taking a call from Charlie Sheen in the middle of the interview, and it really was. And so it was nuts.
Yeah. It sounded crazy. Go ahead, Chris.
Yeah, no, Eric, when you spoke to Strawberry and
Yeah.
Gooden and other players as well, do you feel they're just like how we say the what if story and all that about how great they could have been? Do you feel that they carry that regret with them, or do you think they're at peace with that and they're like, hey, you know what? I made my mistakes. I'm good. Or do they still hold that like us fans do today?
Yeah, Strawberry has moved on. I mean, he's in a good place. I mean,
Yeah.
he I can't speak for Straw, but from all indications, that was a bumpy road to get to where he is now, where he can go out and preach and talk about the difficult life that he had and some of the poor choices that he made, and he can go out and help people. And so I think in Straw's case, there's probably no regret. I mean, I'm sure that he wishes that he had stayed clean, but the end result, he's made the best of it, and he sees himself as someone that's helping people now. Many people. He's probably saved lives, which is more important than baseball. And with Doc, yeah, there's still regret. I mean, I think that's why he still struggles from time to time
Yeah.
today. I mean, when we spoke to about what happened to him and what froze his career, he felt awful. I mean, he broke down. I mean, a few of these guys broke down, just like some of the Red Sox in the '86 Red Sox book. I mean, these guys, a lot of times fans think, well, they don't care as much as we do. The fans are wrong. They really do. And with Doc, I think he felt really awful, not just for what could have been, which was already, I mean, his numbers were so similar to Whitey Ford's career-wise, but I mean, he could have been the greatest of all time, and he absolutely, I mean, Hall of Fame would have been the floor. Um, and there was regret, and I think he felt badly for disappointing his mom, and he took her death very, very badly. Um, so I think he still struggles today.
Friday nights at Shea Stadium when Doc would pitch.
Oh,
I was there many a Friday night. It was an event. Shea Stadium was crazy. It was packed. Doc
yeah,
was on the mound, and nothing was better.
no,
Nothing was better. And I could see the regret in his face sometimes. But like you said about Straw, I've seen him I've seen him all over the place preaching, and you're right. He looks like he's in a better place.
no, yeah.
I think a lot of that has to do with his wife also.
Mhm.
Um, I think that's a big part of it. But Strawberry looks like he's in a better place, and I'm really happy that he is, and he still helps Doc because I still, like you said, I still see like sometimes it looks like there's still a struggle with Doc. Um,
Yep.
but I'm glad. But let's talk about, because we got to segue into another book. But in this book also you talk about Mookie, and you wrote a book about Mookie.
I wrote his autobiography with him.
Yeah, great. So tell us about that. That's another one I'm going to be reading for the next year and a half.
You know, one of the problems with writing books is I rarely get to read a book for enjoyment.
Yeah.
Like I read a lot, but it's for research. But Mookie is one of the finest people I've ever met. It was just an absolute pleasure working with Mookie on his autobiography. He had tremendous energy. I mean, I think he's 70 now or 69. And so at the time, he was about 60. And I mean, we would have 10-hour interviews. I mean, he
Wow.
had so much energy. And I mean, I would ask him all the time, "Do you want to take a break?" "No, no, no, I'm good. I'm good." And I just, he takes extremely good care of himself. Um, he was kind of, along with Gary Carter, the two guys on the '86 team that really took care of themselves. You know, I mean, um, neither one of them drank. Certainly, neither one of them did drugs. And you know, Mookie was the elder statesman of that Mets team. He wasn't the oldest, but he was with the team the longest. Um, and he, you know, I think you know the Buckner play changed his life. I mean, let's be honest. I mean, just like in every obituary that you saw with Bill Buckner when he passed away, that play, which is just extremely unfair for someone that had a career like Buckner had, but it's frozen in the collective memories of baseball fans, and Mookie was the same way. I mean, that play, that 4 or 5 bounce dribbler up the first baseline changed his life. And he and Buckner became great friends, very good friends, much in the same way that Ralph Branca and Bobby Thompson became friends and business partners. I mean, Buckner put all 3 kids through college signing that photo. So when you talk about Mookie, I mean, let's be honest. I mean, you know, he had great talent, tremendous speed. Um, he was a good hitter. He was a good ball player, but he'll forever be remembered for the ground ball that went through Buckner's legs to win Game 6 of the '86 series. And but you know, the last thing I'll say about Mookie is I tell people this all the time. He wasn't the greatest Met of all time, but he was the most beloved.
Yes.
Um, and and he will go down in Mets lore as the most beloved Mets player of all time. There is nothing not to love. And when we did so many book signings, and I can't, if I had $1 for everybody that came up to us and said, I named my dog Mookie after you. It's crazy, but that just goes to show. And we did this event in Brooklyn, this book signing. I couldn't believe. I mean, there was over 500 people standing in line. I mean,
Wow.
it just went around the block and everything. Um, that's how beloved this guy was, and it's really a great story. I mean, the son of a sharecropper in uh, the South in the late '60s when he grew up there. I mean, it's a tough time to be an African American, and I mean, he had nothing, and to rise from that point to being the toast of New York,
Hmm.
it's a tremendous journey that Mookie's had, and he appreciates it, and he loves talking about it. So yeah, Mookie's one of my favorite people. Period.
How did the trade to Toronto go with him? I'm sure he took that hard getting traded to Toronto.
Well, he took it. What he took really hard was the Mets trading for Juan Samuel um, to play center field. Samuel was the second baseman, and the Mets make the trade. They put him in center field, and because they liked his bat, and but I mean, Mookie was an above average center fielder. So that was the beginning of the end. Like he could read the writing on the wall. Um, but when he went to Toronto, he liked playing for Cito Gaston. Cito basically said to him, "Look, I know what you can do, and I'm just going to let you go out there and play." And Mookie played well with the Blue Jays, but his heart was always in New York.
Yeah, and they Cashman, and I know there were some assistant GMs and McIlvain and those guys, but he really broke up that team. And yeah, 88 was a great year. Disappointing. I was at Shea Stadium when Gooden gave up that home run to Scotia, and it was freezing that night. And that night was, one of the worst nights I've ever had at Shea Stadium. But
Yeah.
he just broke up. He got rid of, like you said, the heart of that team. Dykstra, McDowell. I could just go on and on. And he brought in McReynolds. McReynolds, a solid ball player, but he didn't fit in with that team. They're saying his personality. So they broke up that team. That team could have been so much greater, but maybe 86 was supposed to be just the one World Series that they were supposed to win.
Well,
the way it
Yeah,
was won.
there were so many miscalculations. You bring up McReynolds. Yeah, I mean when the game ended, I mean he already had one leg in his street clothes, in his pants. I mean he couldn't wait to get out of there. He was the kind of guy that you want your daughter to marry, but not necessarily in your clubhouse. I mean, he was a sweet, nice guy, but that 86 era Mets team, I mean, they weren't Boy Scouts. But the miscalculation that they made with Kevin was with Kevin Mitchell. That
Yeah,
that was I mean, you're talking about a guy that won the MVP award just in 89. So they trade him after the 86 season, and then he goes out, he ends up with the Giants, and after a short stay in San Diego, and he's the most valuable player, and he's
I
young.
know.
And the reason why Frank Cashin traded him was because he thought he was a bad influence on Gooden and Strawberry, because Kevin Mitchell grew up in a gang infested area in San
Yep,
Diego. Kevin Mitchell has become a dear friend of mine, and yeah, he has the shrapnel in his body to prove it that he was shot. I mean, it was the bullets weren't intended for him, but he got hit. I mean, that's how rough it was. But the guy never drank. He didn't do drugs. He was just a big kid. I mean, he still is. He likes playing with electronics and toys and but he's a great guy, and I think he would have been a very positive influence on Gooden and Strawberry as he became older. Because the problems with Strawberry, I mean, they didn't really come in earnest until, like around 91. I mean, his career really went off the rails in Los Angeles, not New York. I mean, with Gooden, he got suspended just prior to the 87 season. And really in 86, you could tell something was off.
Especially in the World Series.
Oh, the perspiration and Dwight Evans took him deep in game 2, and Dewey told me, I didn't have any issues against Gooden. And I mean, who could say that in 84 and 85? I mean, he was 85 was one of the single greatest seasons a pitcher ever had, ever. And so he was clearly, using coke during that 86 season.
Yeah, and Straw, and he says this all the time now. He kind of regrets, the one thing that he does regret is leaving the Mets for the Dodgers, right? I'm sure he said that to you, because I've heard him say that.
Yeah, sure. He regrets it. I mean, if he had stayed a Met, he probably would have. It's tough to say. I mean, addiction's a tricky thing. I think there's a higher likelihood that he would have been okay. But it's a shame. I mean, he as it is. I mean, I guess Seaver's the greatest Met of all time, but greatest offensive player. I mean, it's probably Strawberry, but I mean, he could really have solidified himself as an all-time greatest Met. I mean, at least from the offensive side,
Oh yeah, well, that sweet swing. I mean, just watching that swing. But and Erik, you have so many other books that we want to get to, and of course, we don't have enough time. And there's just all your books.
Erik, let me ask you something. Out of all the books, what was the one that you enjoyed writing the most?
I get this question all the time, and I'm going to give you my same boring generic answer. They're like your children.
You can't pick one.
You don't love one more than the other. They were all special in different ways. The commonality that they have is they're all baseball stories that transcend the sport, that they delve into human interest, human challenges, and sometimes their challenges are overcome and sometimes they're not. And we've touched on some of those players in the last hour that fall in both categories. But I was telling somebody yesterday, I really feel like these books that I've written could apply to any walk of life, but I just chose baseball because it's what I know the most about, and it's one of my great loves. And but these challenges, I mean, they could apply to anybody in any walk of life.
Yep, that's true. You know what? And the Two Sides of Glory, it's a book. I don't read a lot of books, unfortunately, but that would be one that I want to read because the one thing that always sticks with me about that 86 series, coming from a Yankee fan, you have neither team you wanted to root for really, going through high school at the time too. But the one image that I'll never get out of my head is seeing Wade Boggs on the bench in tears. Like, you never see a ball player show that kind of emotion, especially when they lose. And to see him doing that, that's always stuck with me.
He was thinking about his mom
Yeah.
at that moment. And something about Boggs too. Now this is for you. You're a Yankee guy.
Mhm.
When he was on that policeman's horse after winning the World Series with the Yankees in '96, I asked him what he was thinking at that very moment, and he said, I was thinking about how great this would have been if it had happened in Boston in '96. You know, the Red Sox had gone, 68 years in '86, without winning a World Series, and they finally broke the curse after 86 years, which Bobby Ojeda always loves to tell that story, because he played for both the Red Sox and then the Mets, and he thought that was ironic. But yeah, Boggs, I know we're not going to get into that book, but that was a remarkable interview that I had with Boggs. We talked hitting, and it was like talking with Einstein about science. I mean, it was he he's a remarkable student of hitting, and he can talk to a 6-year-old about hitting, or he could talk to Rod Carew and George Brett about hitting. I mean, any level. Yeah, that's he's so superstitious too. But again, if you have me back on to talk about that book,
We will.
then
We definitely
yeah,
will.
I'd be that. And I love that team too. That was a great team. I grew up rooting for both the Mets and the Yankees in the '70s. My father was a Yankee fan. My brother was a Mets fan, and people ask me who my favorite team is now, and I say, for years and years now, since I've been writing books, I'm a fan of people and a fan of great stories. And so hopefully you find those in my books.
Okay. All right, Eric. We ask everybody this question at the end of the show. If you were named baseball commissioner today, what changes would you make to the game?
Well, I would eliminate where the catcher has to stand in a certain area so as not to block home plate. The bases would go back to their normal size. The rule around second base, I wouldn't allow that. I like the fact that they've sped up the game, but I would have done it differently. I would have limited the number of available pitchers to 12 on a roster instead of the 14 or 15 that they have now, or whatever it is. That would have made managers think twice before pulling pitchers with the whole lefty righty nonsense all the time. Which, by the way, Davey, for as much of a sabermetrics guy that he was all for leaving a right-handed pitcher in there to face a lefty from time to time, because he wanted to build up their confidence. So I think I gave you a whole bunch there.
That's great. Why don't you give us your website so
Yeah,
our viewers could check out the books there?
yeah. My website is www.erikshermanbaseball.com. So erikshermanbaseball.com. You can find me on Twitter at by Erik Sherman. So BY Erik Sherman. And I also have a podcast, The Erik Sherman Show.
Great.
So
We got to check it out.
check that out.
Listen, Eric, we had so much fun, and Chris agreed with me. You have an open invitation, right, Chris?
With that, I hope you come back, because
Yeah.
we have a million more stuff to talk to about.
We want to we want to get to the other books. I mean, we did
Yeah.
focus on the Mets basically, but we definitely would love to have you back. We hope you want to come back.
Of course, yeah. I've had a lot of fun, and it always helps when the host have read the book.
Yeah.
That makes a huge difference. So, I really appreciate all the great questions and the prep, and you got a great show, and I'd be happy to come back and anytime that you'd have me.
Great. We definitely will. We
you.
appreciate it. I just want to let everybody know we're going to be on Friday night at 9:00. We decided for the off season, we're going to switch it from 10 p.m. to 9 p.m. because there aren't any games on. So we'll get the show on early starting this Friday night. Chris, I'm good. You have anything else?
No, I think I'm good too, Eric. We really appreciate you having, given us the time and just talking and giving us these great stories about the books, and we'd love to have you on again.
Definitely.
Great.
Thanks a lot. And we'll catch everybody Friday night, 9 p.m. Thank you.